Good morning. Live on my air. This is God's Warrior. It's Valentine's Day. So today I want to talk to you about love. Not lust. That's different. Lust is different from love. God says if a man looks after a woman to lust after her, he hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. I'm not talking about lust. I'm talking about love. Love between a man and a woman, love for God. Basically love between a man and a woman. It says in John 3:16, or 1 John 3:16, we know love by this, he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. First Corinthians 1 Corinthians 13 is in the New Testament. 1 Corinthians 13 says, First Corinthians 13. It starts out like this. If I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but do not have love, I have become a noisy gong or clanging cymbal. Number 3 says, verse 3 says, if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, I surrender my body to be burned, but do not have love, it profits me nothing. Verse 4, love is patient, love is kind, and is not jealous. Love is patient, love is kind, is not jealous. Love never fails, but if there are gifts of prophecy, they will be done away. If there are tongues, they will cease. If there is knowledge, it will be done away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought as a child, reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. But now, 13:1, it says in chapter 12, Paul gave advice on Corinthians' lack of love, utilization of spiritual gifts. 13 defines real love. In chapter 14, great faith, acts of dedication, sacrifice, miracle working power produce very little without love. Love mistakes our actions and gifts as useful. Although people have different gifts, love is available to everyone. And 4-7 says, our society confuses love and lust. That's what I'm talking about. God's kind of love is directed outward toward others, not inward toward ourselves. It is utterly unselfish. The kind of love goes against our natural inclinations. It is possible to practice love only if God helps us set aside our own desire and instincts, so that we can give love while expecting nothing in return. Thus, the more we become like Christ, the more love we show to others. The more we become like Christ, the more love we show to others. How much love are you showing today? And then the ultimate love chapter, Song of Songs. Song of Solomon. Who is coming from the wilderness leaning on her beloved? Beneath the apple tree I awakened you. This is chapter 8, verse 7. Chapter 8, number 7, verse 5. 7, the power of love. Who is coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? Beneath the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she was in labor and gave you birth. Put me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death. Jealousy is severe as Sheol. It flashes and flashes of fire. The very flames of the Lord, many waters cannot quench love, nor will rivers overflow it. If a man were to give all the riches of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. We have a little sister, and she has no breasts. What should we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build her on a battlement of silver. We will build her a battlement of silver. But if she is a door, we will barricade her with planks of cedar. I was a wall, and my breasts were like towers. Then I became in the eyes as one who finds peace. Solomon had a vineyard of Baal Haman. He entrusted the vineyard to caretakers. Each one was to bring 1,000 shekels of silver for its fruit. My very own vineyard is at my disposal. 1,000 shekels are for you, Solomon, and 200 are for those who take care of the fruit. Now, what that means is, in this description of their love, the girl includes some of her significant characteristics. Love is as strong as death. It cannot be killed by time or disaster, and it cannot be brought to any prince, and it cannot be bought for any price, because it is freely given. Love is priceless. Even the richest king cannot buy it. Love must be accepted as a gift from God, and when shared within the guidelines God provides. Accept the love of your spouse as God's gift. Accept the love of your spouse as God's gift. And strive to make your love a reflection of the perfect love that comes from God Himself. And strive to make your love a reflection of the perfect love that comes from above. Verses 8 and 9. The girl was reflecting on the days when she was younger and under the care of her brothers, who wondered how to help her prepare for marriage. They decided that if she was like a wall standing firm against sexual temptation, they would praise her. But if she was like an open door, open to immorality, they would take steps to guard her from doing something foolish. She testifies that she has been persistent in immorality and thus has found favor in Solomon's eyes. Amen. And then, number 6, the brides tend to appeal. Oh, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, go out into the country. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us rise early and go to the vineyards. Let us see whether the vine is budded and the blossoms have opened, and whether the pomegranates have bloomed. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes have given forth fragrance, and over our doors are all choice fruits, both new and old, which I saved up for you, my beloved. And that says, as a marriage matures, there should be more love and freedom between marriage partners. Here the girl takes initiative in lovemaking. Many cultures have stereotypes of the roles men and women play in lovemaking, but the security of love gives both marriage the freedom to initiate acts of love and express their true feelings. Okay. Down to brass tacks. First Corinthians 13, the love chapter, as some people call it. It says, love is patient, love is kind, wants not itself, and seeks for itself no pleasure. At the end it says these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Now, I'm not married. I'm a warrior. I'm not married. I'm single. But that don't mean I don't know what I'm talking about, because I do. I've been there. I've been in love. There was only one time that I was passionately in love, and I lost her. I never found her again. Oh well. Her name was Krista Barnes. And I was just on my own. I was in my 20s. And she was 7. I was like, she was 17, 18. 17, 18, almost 18. And she went to a runaway shelter, and at the runaway shelter, she went back to West Virginia, and I lost track of her, and I've never seen her again. She gave me her phone number, but I lost it. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, there's no love in the world anymore. I mean, yeah, Christians love the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christians love God. You know, I mean, you see all these romantic movies, but a lot of them give the wrong impression. A lot of them make love out to be a physical thing. I love you. Next thing you know, they say I love you, next thing you know, they end up in bed. Hence the movie No Strings Attached. I've never seen it, but I've read the reviews, but just the title, No Strings Attached. You talk about a movie that gives you one of the worst titles ever. No Strings Attached, and it shows a man sitting on a bed and a woman standing up. I mean, I'm sorry. I was always taught that when you make love or when you love someone, each time you love someone, you're giving a part of yourself to them that you can never take back. Which is probably why I'm single. I mean, I myself, I got caught up in, sexual sins. God delivered me from them. Praise God. I was delivered from them. But the after effects were devastating. Anyway, I believed that at one time, if I was, in love with a girl, then, something had to happen. I prayed and prayed and prayed to God that He would bring me a wife. Well, God's I can't remember the word, but God's notion, I guess, of a wife isn't what I thought was a wife. Instead of going with what God said, I went with my own youthful lusts, I guess, and I paid for it. I definitely paid for it. But nowadays, love is I think love is trashed. It's used too lightly. I mean, you got so many broken hearts, and they say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and then when they break up, they get all depressed, suicidal, whatever, and they say, he loved me, he said he loved me. I think that's why you have so much, maybe not now, but back then I think that's why you had so many, in the 90s, I think that's why you had so many teen pregnancies. Because the girl would get in a car with a guy, or backseat of a car, and say, hey, and the guy's response would be, if you love me, then you'll do this. The girl was all confused, like, I love him, but I don't want to do this. Let me say something to all you young people out there. Abstinence is the best measure. Actually, no. I've been abstinent for 7 years now. 7 years abstinent. And it was the best thing that I've ever done. I mean, like I said, I got a daughter, 16 years old. But like I said, I've been abstinent for 7 years. Best thing I've ever done. Abstinence is the way to go. If you're a woman, do not give away yourself until you're actually married. If you're a man, do not give yourself away to anyone until you're actually married. And do not pressure a girl into having sex with you. He's watching. He knows everything you do. I mean, there's some marriages that have been, you know, lasted years. I mean, look at was it George Burns and Gracie Allen? God rest their souls. Gracie died before George, but every night George Burns loved Gracie Allen so much. Every single night he would say good night, Gracie. And when she was alive, on Burns and Allen's show, I watched Burns and Allen. I used to watch some of their shows. You know, every night they would end the show. He would turn to Gracie and say good night, Gracie. And she would say, good night, Gracie. And after she died, every night, every time he would do a show, he would say good night, Gracie. Now that's love. Well, look at you know, most country singers don't stay together for very long. But look at Shania Twain, not Shania Twain. Well, yeah, well, okay, Shania Twain. But look at Garth Brooks. He's been married to Trisha Yearwood for years. And the biggest country star, Tim McGraw, has been married to his wife. I can't remember her name, but has been married to his wife for decades, and over 20 years. I mean, when I was a kid, which was some time ago, every song on the radio was either about divorce, drinking, sitting in a bar, talking about your ex-wife, or sitting in a bar drowning your sorrows about your divorce, or drowning your sorrows about your marriage. Nowadays, more marriages last, I think, than ever. I think the reason marriages don't last is because they get married to the wrong person. They say, yeah, I love you, I love you, I love you. But as the marriage goes on, as they're married 10, 15 years, they don't look as good as they did. And all of a sudden, the guy, more the guys than ladies. The guys say, oh, yeah, my wife don't look as good as she used to 20 years ago. You know, when I married her, she was a beautiful woman. 20 years later, she's not so good, not so good looking. So I know what I'll do. And this is a big joke around guys and stuff. He says it's one of the worst things I've ever heard. I mean, I'm disgusted every time I hear it. He says, I'll trade her in for a younger model. or he's working late at the office. He says, sorry honey, I gotta work late. I'm gonna be home late. I gotta work late. The boss told me I gotta work late. The boss didn't tell him he had to work late. The boss is already gone. Maybe sometimes the boss did tell him he has to work late. Maybe he is telling the truth sometimes. But 85% of the time, the boss is gone. He says go home. I like NCIS because most of the time, Gibbs says go home. It's late. You've had a long day. But most men say, no, honey, I gotta work late. They're not working late. They're at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, or 8, 9 o'clock at night, they're not alone. Their secretary, or their rendezvous. Someone they said, well, come up to my office at 8 o'clock, I'll just tell my wife I have to work late. They come home, they got lipstick on their collar, they smell perfume. What's going on here? Next thing you know, you're in counseling. Counseling. What a joke. Marriage counseling. The only marriage counseling you ever need is from a priest. A priest, a preacher, or a pastor. It's the only person you need counseling from, because he will tell you the truth. These psychologists, counselors, whatever that you're paying $100 an hour for, or $1,000 an hour for, or whatever you're paying for, bunch of bull. They tell you what you want to hear, not what you should be hearing. I should know. I went to a few psychiatrists, and this is the truth. I went to a few psychiatrists. I took some MMPIs. They said I wasn't crazy. There wasn't nothing wrong with me. I'm a normal human being. But when I went to these psychiatrists, I found out they went to other psychiatrists to find out what I was trying to tell them, or what they should tell me, because they didn't understand what I was saying. I was telling them the truth, but yet in their mind they couldn't comprehend. Well, what's he talking about? Well, you know, they went to another psychiatrist to find out what I was talking about. But anyway, when you find the one that God has meant for you, hang on to them. Let God lead. It's like I heard, what was it? Pastor, well, he comes to our church every year in October. Can't remember his name right now, but he said, in that quote, he said, stop looking for love. If you look for love, you'll never find it. But if you stop looking, you'll be like a brick wall. You'll run right into it, or it will find you. Everyone who looks for love never finds it. They find lust. They find what they think is love. They find lust. They find this. They find that. But they don't find love. True love comes from the Father above. I mean, if you follow 1 Corinthians 13 to the letter, it says love is patient, love is kind. And if every man would really love his woman, and if every marriage were set to God's standards, I'm telling you right now, these abuse centers would go out of business. There would be no need for abuse centers, because there would be no need for abuse. There would be no abuse. God is perfect. Christ, His Son, is perfect. I am not. You are not. Just remember, when you find someone you love, never let them go. Because if you find someone to love and it's ordained by God, you can never go wrong. If you find someone to pray with, if you find someone to go to church with, if you find someone, when you look into their eyes, when you marry them, when you first start dating, you look into their eyes. When you first start dating, and if you're truly in love, when you look into their eyes, and you know you can't not live without them, and you can't live without each other, so you get married. if you should see that same love 20, 30, 40 years from now, if you're married that long, that you saw when you first started dating. You should love them when they're 25. You should love them when they're 45. You should love them when they're 75. My friend, this will pass away. But what's inside the heart will never pass away. True love is true love. Love of the Father, love of Christ, love of Jesus, love of your girlfriend, love of your wife. True love will never fail. These three things remain: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these. Greatest of these? Love. Love is the greatest emotion anyone could ever have. Christ loved us. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him should have everlasting life. Christ loved us so much that he died for us on the cross, shed his blood for us. Greater love hath no man than he who lays his life down for a friend. My friend, greater love and greater love for your wife. Love for God should come first. It should be this way. I was taught a long time ago. Love for God, love for your wife, love for your kids, and love for you last. It should be God, wife, children, and you. You should be last. Remember, these three things: faith, hope, and love. Grace is love. Do you truly love your wife? I mean, when I look in the paper or see on the TV all these TV shows about battered wives, or they've even got a word for it now, which sickens me: battered wife syndrome. Oh, it makes me so sick I just want to vomit. But anyway, in conclusion, love your wife. It's like I saw in a movie once called Queen's Logic. If you want to have a happy life, love your wife. Happy Valentine's Day. Peace, love. I love you all. My brothers, my sisters, I love you all. This is God's warrior saying, show love this day. I'm looking you in the eye saying, show love this day. Amen.